Part 3 is a bit of an extension from Part 2. The quotes aren't necessarily linked because they're not necessarily from the same part of the study, but how we'll discuss it, we'll kind of try and sort of link the two. We'll talk a little bit more about consistency again. So the quote is, although maintaining a neutral spine is consistently included in technical models for lifting exercises performed in the weight room, evidence that suggests that the spine flexes beyond the neutral zone during the performance of strength training exercises. So the sort of the link is, in the previous part we talked about when we come out of neutral, there's more potential for tissue damage. When we're in neutral, that same load or force is sort of spread around the tissues, so it's minimized on the passive structures. What they're now saying here is that although people are told to maintain a neutral spine, they don't, essentially. Now, the key thing here is, because I think what they're trying to insinuate is that, and I'm not 100% sure of this because it's not 100% clear in the study, but I think they're trying to insinuate that even when people go into a lift, their spine comes out of the neutral zone, and I think what they're trying to say is that's normal, but I have a couple of questions regarding that. And does the spine still have that lordotic curve in it, but it's just minimized, or are they flexing the spine, i.e. they literally have a rounded spine? So that's the bit that's unclear, because they may be holding the position, but as they go down into it, the spine just flattens out a bit. Now, the thing we need to understand with this one is, just because it's in the study doesn't mean it's right. So just because people are coming out of neutral doesn't mean it's normal, if that makes sense. Because it could be just limited range of movement of the hip. And instead of just hammering home, lift more weight, lift it from the floor, have the studies where they've got this from, have they looked at the ability to flex the hip and maintain a neutral spine in the bottom position of a deadlift, for example, or in the bottom position for a squat? So is it just that the individuals that are taking part in it, they just have a lack of range of movement in the hips, so that when they go down, their spine flexes as a compensation? Or is it they have plenty of range of movement of the hip, and when they go down, the spine flattens out a bit and comes out of the definition of the neutral zone? Because I'm not 100% sure that's been clarified. Could it be motor control? Could it be they've got the range of movement, they just don't know how to use it, if that makes sense? So when they get down into the bottom position and the coach says maintain a neutral spine, they don't sort of maintain the position of the hips, lift the chest up and maintain that natural curvature of the spine all the way down. So it could be something like that. These are the types of things that I'm unsure of, because they're saying, and they say it a couple more times in the study, that we don't need to use neutral spine in the weight room. And that's fine, because one of the places that they sort of talk about it is the strongmen, where they do like the Atlas stones as an example, where they sort of lift it and roll it over the knee onto the thigh, and their body is wrapped around it. Which, again, there's caveats with that because it's a particular exercise, it's done in a particular way. The weight is about as close to the body as you can get it because they literally roll it around the knees and it sits on the thigh. So not as much stress is put on the spine as it could be. The people that are doing it have certain tolerances and capacity for doing it. So again, we have to take that into consideration, which is what we've talked about before. So we have, again, it's not just as simple as, although it's consistently included. So although we are told to say maintain a neutral spine in the weight room, as they say, evidence suggests that the spine's flexing, even though we're saying maintain it. But why is the spine flexing? Because is it flexing because they can't maintain it? Is it flexing because the spine or the neutral spine can't be maintained in that position? Or is it because the individual doing it doesn't have the range of motion of the hip, or they don't have the motor control to hold the position? So we have to, again, have the understanding of the person that stood in front of us and not just blindly follow what the science is saying. Because I know, certainly in my experience, personal experience that is, that if I put, one of the things I'll say is, for a tactile experience of a neutral spine, you put the back of your hand on your lower back. So you put your little finger at the top of your pelvis, you put your thumb sort of at the bottom of the thoracic spine. So when you stood up, you can feel the position it's in. And then what I say, when you hip hinge forward, does that position change? If it does, then you're moving out of neutral. If it stays the same, and then what you can do, if it stays the same, you're staying in neutral. And what you can then do is you can then understand how deep you can go into the hip hinge. So it's very much having that understanding that, okay, we're told we are meant to maintain a neutral spine, but is that actually happening? Is that the natural and done thing for the spine to come out of neutral, or is it just because they don't have the range of movement of the hip and they don't have the motor control to get into that position? That's what we have to come to understanding when we read or hear something like that.